everybody, it's Jason from Oddball Show, and I'm super excited to have Will Hall on the show today. A little bit about Will. So when I had Will Hall on my show in 2020, things were a lot different for me, and because of our talk, I went on a journey of self-discovery around medications and well-being, and finally just being happy with who I am as a person, and only in competition with myself. It was an amazing experience to talk to Will, who I had read about and admired from afar. And after the show, Will and I developed a warm rapport that has lasted, and I'm eternally grateful for him coming on the show so long ago. Now, if you don't know Will Hall, I will say you are in for a treat of a show. Will is a member of the ex-patient advocacy movement and is a prominent speaker who has written numerous amounts of articles in Mad in America, as well as his two books that can be both found on Oddball Magazine's bookshelf, one being Outside Voices, a wonderful look into a multitude of perspectives on mental health and recovery, and also his amazing, groundbreaking harm reduction guide to coming off of psychiatric medications. I am lucky enough to spend some time today with my friend, Will Hall. Will, welcome to the show.
Hey, and I'm lucky enough to hang out with you, Jason, and I admire the work that you're doing. You're quite a poet as well, I must say. People got to check out your poetry if they haven't done that. And yeah, here we are. Happy post-pandemic. Cross fingers.
I know. I mean, if we can go back a little bit to where we were in the pandemic, I think me and you connected very early into the pandemic. And I remember remarking, we had a great conversation. If you want to check it out, there's going to be show notes, and you can check out that with a conversation that me and Will had a couple years back. But Will, one thing that you told me about, and I want to talk about this before we get into everything, because I know we want to talk about a lot of things, is you told me that there's a life without medication if you really try really hard to go titrate, to go, and also not just like titrate, but also like use your well-being and your senses and your meditation and spiritual growth, all this sort of stuff, and not to necessarily rely on medications as your only thing, right? Like they're band-aids, in my opinion. So a real quick story. So I was very close to coming off my medications, incredibly close, but I was overdoing it, Will. I was doing neurofeedback, I was doing meditation, I was doing acupuncture, I was taking numerous amounts of nootropics. I took one from GNC like that day or 2 days beforehand, the story I'm about to tell you. And I had just done this amazing Tony Robbins like pump up, unleash the power within. So unleash the power within, if you don't know about it, it's like it like shoots you up to like 10 on the Richter scale. Like you are like, oh my God. And then you like leave it and you're like, okay, now I get to sit at my desk and drink coffee. And if anyone talks to me, I'm a beast. But other than that, So anyway, I ended up having at the same time that all that was happening, I lowered my antipsychotic just a little bit too much. And I ended up having a break. And I ended up getting hospitalized. So it took a little bit of a time to like kind of figure out what happened, but I had some amazing experiences in the hospital, and not amazing, like nothing's amazing in the hospital, but that first like day that you're in the hospital, they let you act out whatever stuff you're going through, and without any kind of cause for medication or anything, and they just kind of let you feel everything you're feeling. And that's been my experience for all of these different hospitalizations. But I had this really amazing experience, just not empowering, but more of like a enlightening experience that like really just kind of put a lot of things together for me. And then I finally got out of the hospital, and they had put me on the wrong meds, of course, as they always do. And then I had to fight to get back on my right meds, and now I'm on my right meds, and I'm feeling better than I ever had. And plus, all in that, I had a daughter, which I think is the ultimate medication, to be honest with you. But I guess I want to say that I know, like, I was so empowered by your conversation. If you look back at the videos of me and Will, I was very pale. I was like kind of sickly. I felt sickly, and Will looked very, healthy. And he's talking about like this life without like medications and using like his experience and stuff. And he felt so like it just seemed like there was so much wealth of information, and that you like imparted it on me that day. And although it didn't like work out totally 100%, like I'm still on medications, I went on a major journey of self-discovery, and I just really want to thank you for that, Will.
Yeah, I think your story is really, really insightful, because as I write in the harm reduction guide to coming off psychiatric medications, the goal really isn't being off medications or being on medications. The goal is really taking charge of your life and finding more empowerment and finding greater health and more of a sense of connection and more of a sense of a purpose and meaning in your life, whatever that looks like. I mean, for some people, it's going to be on medications. Some people, it's going to be different medications or reduction of medications. Some people are going to come off medications. But the whole point for me is the empowering journey, because that is the tragedy of the mental health system, I think, is that we're turned into these passive recipients. We're turned into these subjects, these objects, rather than the subjects of our own. We don't really have a collaborative relationship. And so the passivity and the disempowerment can kind of take the form of that symbolic pill. And so you're ingesting this pill and you're sort of reaffirming your passivity and kind of giving up. And so the point is not, what's the outcome? Is someone off meds or on meds or reduce their meds or change their meds or whatever? The point is the empowerment and the change and the sense of health and wellness as the person defines it. And once you get into that frame, then it's a learning process. And it sounds like what you went through is what a lot of people go through. You experiment, you explore, and then you find out like, hey, this was my initial goal. I wanted to come off. Okay, it didn't quite work out that way. Now I've got a different, whoa, wait a second. I've got a daughter now. Wow, now my whole focus is around my daughter. And then you just keep going. And if you're informed and you're engaged with the process and you're in a process of growth, I really think it's up for each individual to define for themselves what is meaningful and where they want to go with things. I think that that's been a big problem in the, if we could call it the MAD movement or the psychiatric patients survivor movement, has been like either pro or con medications. And that's why we framed it as a harm reduction approach. So it's really about meeting people where they're at. So yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I also think it's great that you went on that journey, and whatever I'm imparting to you, I've learned from many, many, many conversations in support groups, in different organizing I've been doing, people working with people one-on-one in trainings and workshops. So that's what came into writing the harm reduction guide. And so I'm really grateful that you're, sharing your experience, and maybe it'll help other people to kind of get out of this either or thinking trap and just say, okay, what do I want to do? How do I want to engage with my life? How do I want to research? A lot of what we've been told, most of what we've been told about medications and diagnosis and, the prognosis and recovery and treatments, it just isn't reality. It's not really truthful. And so we have to go on our own journey of learning for ourselves, because at the heart of mental health is human suffering. And you can't go to a doctor and say, hey, what's the meaning of life? Or you can't go to a doctor and say, hey, how do I no longer suffer in life? That's a very personal, intimate, and often for many of us, a spiritual process. It can involve life choices like starting a family and having a daughter. So I really appreciate what you're saying, and I hope that that the listeners can really relate to it and think about it in terms of their own growth and learning process, which is how I like to see it.
Yeah, and I want to kind of go off of that. Well, I didn't just go off of my meds. That's not the message here. I went and I had a very intelligent conversation, a very proactive conversation with my wife, my family, my work, my doctor, my dentist, my therapist, and anyone else who would listen. I think I even told my peers as a peer support specialist, look, you might see some changes in me, all these things. And I slowly went off the process, going very gradually. And I do think it's very possible. You go very gradually. It's very possible, but it's not necessarily the goal. I mean, the necessarily goal is to find, I remember when you said something about you, if you take too much, if you let too much out and you go, whoa, like that's too much, like pull back. But at some levels of you, when you have so much stuff in your system, whether it's, I mean, so all these modalities are good, right? Neurofeedback, it's a beautiful science. It's incredible. It's an incredible science. And if you don't know about neurofeedback, um, listen to the Synergy podcast on Oddball Show, where it talks about the idea of neurofeedback and what it is, and it's incredible. And then you have acupuncture, which is incredible, and then you have nootropics, which can be incredible, and then you have Tony Robbins, who is incredible, and then you have medications that are incredible. And then you take it all and you like put it all together and you're like, all right, now I'm gonna mess with this and take this away. It was just too much, and I think I was taking at one point just like I was just I was just kind of like I'm in control of my mental health here. I'm in control of my own journey, um, and not that it was like a bad thing because it's a major journey of self discovery and it was great and beautiful. And I formed Oddball Foundation and made a lot of I did a lot of stuff. But at the same time, I had a crushing experience with the last part of Oddball Foundation in March when I mean, you kind of have to deal with the experience. If you say you are working, like I had a team behind me and I had to be like in the psych ward and they had to just kind of abandon post because they were all interns and they went back to their and they're like the guy that is is our president of this foundation is in the hospital. What should we do? And they're all like retreat, retreat, So like you kind of have to. It's almost like everything. You kind of have to deal with whatever situations arise, right? So like if you go through door A, whatever happens through door A is going to happen through door A. If you go through door B, whatever's going to happen through door B. That's life is a series of journey, a series of questions and answers, and moving left and moving right, and it's all about just knowing yourself. But at some point, it's almost impossible to know yourself when you are so like I lost the sense of who I was at the moment because I had dialed back too much, everything too quickly. So that's the only cautionary thing. But as I said, I went through all these sort of like harm reduction measures, and I learned so much, and I learned so much from different people who were able to do it. And I actually watched people do it, like in my like environment. And I gotta say, I was kind of like I was like what's the word? Kind of envious of these peers and like coworkers and stuff, and they're like lowering their meds and like finally coming off of them and stuff. And I felt almost like I failed at first, but then after realizing like the stuff that I experienced, it wasn't a failure. It was not even it wasn't even a misdirection. It was just that's what happened. And with a lot of things, it's just acceptance. Just accept it, move on. I can't change what just happened. What I had for dinner 10 minutes ago. That's the past. Same thing with all these life events. What's important right now is where we're at here, and that's what's important. So
Yeah, one of the
yeah,
yeah, one of the key messages is really is everybody's unique. Everybody has specific needs. There's in the harm reduction guide and all the different people you talk to, there's no recipe. Different people can do it in different ways. And that is scary because you sort of want to do it perfectly. You want to do it just right. You want to make the right decision. Life often isn't like that. And the way that medications interact with a person individually, the way that medications interact with your history, the whatever crisis or emotional distress or altered states that you've been through, very, very different for very different people. And so there's an element of unpredictability. And so I think that's why the key element of the process is really recognizing that diversity and unpredictability. And you have to just kind of go through it and you learn, and then you just keep going. And I really like what you said. It's not about failure. It's just about, okay, it took a twist, an unexpected twist, and there's different twists and turns. And then you just try and stay engaged and really see it as a learning process. You get information, you get some feedback, you get a response, and then you use that to recalibrate what your next steps are, which may be just, okay, this is the medications I'm on now. That's fine. I want to focus. I got more on my plate over here, or I want to make some changes. But I mean, to me, your experience is very instructive for a lot of people because you recognize that you learned a lot and you were able to make a lot of improvements in your life. And then fundamentally, that's what we're talking about. Can you grow and heal and improve the quality of your life, whatever that looks like for you?
Yeah, and to button this up, I did. That was my healing journey. I came to a place where I was like, okay, that's where I'm at this very moment. I'm going to accept that, because when I fought back to get on the right meds that I was on, and then found a better psychiatrist, and was able to this person really understood and put me on just the right amount of meds that I'm totally fine, that I'm happy, I'm moving, I'm grooving, everything's good. So I don't plan on messing with my meds. But the thing is, I'm kind of glad that I went through this experience, because if I hadn't talked to you, Will, and let's move on to something else. But if I hadn't talked to you, Will, I might have been, and this is about anyone who was going through something. If they don't have someone who's been through it, i.e., a peer, a teacher, a counselor, a therapist that's trauma informed or whatever, you might feel like you're lost and like totally in a vacuum. And Will, you really just opened up my eyes to a whole different world, and I really appreciate it. So let's switch gears real quick. I know, like, I was really excited to hear. I got an email about like 3 months ago about Mad Camp. You had begun crowdfunding for Mad Camp, so I'm very excited about Mad Camp. I want to learn about Mad Camp, so please, what is Mad Camp, Will?
Mad Camp. Yeah. Well, Mad Camp is basically summer camp for people who've been through madness and who are trying to find some space outside of professionals and therapists and doctors and the system and appointments and being part of programs, and find community with each other. Because there's something fundamental that we share, which is being outsiders, and also feeling that the mental health system isn't the answer for us. We need an end to the violence in the psychiatric system. And once you've been through that, you feel horrifically isolated. You can feel like, there's nobody. And then, of course, today, where we find community, and I want to put that word in air quotes because we find it online. And no, it's not. We're not just going to slide online from real life. So my colleagues, Dina Tyler, Monica Kasani, some other colleagues, and I were just discussing, like, what is really the heart of what helps us? What is really the key thing? And you just mentioned it, is the connection, finding other people. And in all of the work that I've done around human rights in psychiatry and ending forced treatment and creating alternatives and being part of different organizations, different kind of activism, different kind of community work, it was always the friendships that were the key. It wasn't, people asked me like, hey, Will, how did you get out of the system? How did you get off disability? It wasn't really the coming off meds part, because I was off meds, but I was still on disability. I was on disability for 15 years. It wasn't really the going to school, because I had gone to school, but then I went back into the system. It wasn't really the diet changes, because I made a lot of nutrition changes. It wasn't really the spiritual practice that there were all these different things that I did, but really what it was finding other people to connect with. It was building the friendships, because my world wasn't safe. I had no home, in a sort of symbolic sense of like a place of safety in the world. And so it was really finding other people. And I found it through the movement. I found it through the MAD movement, through the psychiatric survivor movement. And so in talking about all this with my colleagues and coming out of the pandemic, and just knowing that the system has gotten worse for so many more people, that a lot of our organizations, there's money coming in, people are getting really disoriented, there's a lot of co-optation, there's a lot of alternatives that aren't really alternatives, a lot of people feeling disconnected and alone and separated. And we just said, look, we got to build friendship. And then Dina was very close with Jay Mahler, who was one of the earliest organizers of the psychiatric survivor movement. He actually came out of the free speech movement in Berkeley. He was an anti-war and civil rights activist. And so Jay became Dina's mentor and told Dina about the early days of survivor activism. They would meet in parks, and they would have a summer gathering. They had a summer camp gathering. And so we thought, wait a second. And we also saw this film Crip Camp, which is really interesting. It's about the roots of the disability rights movement and some of the major activism that they did, some sit-ins and things. It was the same people that had met as teenagers and early 20s at this summer camp for people, mostly people with physical mobility disabilities, cerebral palsy, and different, and there were some blind people, and different people had different physical disabilities, and the way that those friendships carried forward for decades and decades. And so we thought, we just got really inspired by this idea. Let's do Mad Camp. So Mad Camp applications are open now. You can go to madcamp.net. It's 5 days in the forested mountains of Northern California, July 20th to 24th of this year. And we are inviting people who have this sort of loose general identity of having been through the mental health system, madness. It's welcoming everybody who shares that feeling of we want to create something different than the mental health system, that we are often mad, not just in the sense of madness, but mad also in the sense of being angry that we've been mistreated and harmed. But really, it's not an activist gathering. It's certainly not a conference. It's basically a place to have fun and throw the frisbee and splash around in the pool and go on hikes and, hang out by the campfire and, tell stories and just get to know each other and build community and connection around space and time. In 5 days, we thought about, well, maybe we should do it just a couple days, just a weekends. Like, no, 5 days is long enough to really, really, really get away and really connect with each other. So mostly Mad Camp is something I want to go to. Like, everything is volunteer. We're just organizing this because it's something we want to do. We want to share with people. So if that sounds like you and you're interested, please, we got people coming internationally. We got people coming from Canada. We raised more than $4,000 in scholarships. So we're trying to help people with the ticket prices. And then people say, well, what are we going to do at Mad Camp? We don't have like a set program. It's not like a conference, but what we're going to do is we're going to share what offerings that we have. Someone wants to organize an open mic. Someone wants to organize an acupuncture group. Someone wants to organize a storytelling. We've got someone who wants to DJ ecstatic dance. We've got people who do art and poetry. It's just going to be all this gathering and pooling our offerings to share with each other. So I'm really excited about it. And I think I see Mad Camp more than anything as an antidote to isolation. That's fundamentally, when we were doing the Freedom Center back in we started Freedom Center 20 years ago in Western Massachusetts. That was one of our main slogans, which was isolation is the problem, community is the solution, which is a very different way of thinking about mental health problems. But I still think that's true. I think that's really who Mad Camp is for. It's the people out there who, even though we're on Zoom and even though we're very active, and we still feel like we're disconnected, we don't have that real community experience. So if that's interesting to you, now's the time. We're gathering applications for tickets. We're not sure how many people it's going to be. We're thinking like 20, 30, 40. We're not really sure. We've never organized anything like this. I mean, crunching the numbers and figuring out all the different logistical stuff is a complete, let's just say it's a really big challenge, but it's coming together. We put out the idea and people have been excited by it. It's really captured the imagination. There's a blog that I wrote about it on Mad in America. People could go check that out, madinamerica.com, and just check out Mad Camp, madcamp.net. And we'd love to have you.
So, that sounds great, Will. And we'll put all the relevant information in the show notes for this. This sounds like an amazing event. It's going to be, are there going to be like speakers or is this going to be?
No speakers. No, it's not going to be conference style. There's going to be, if people want to give a talk, then give a talk. It's going to be self-organized. It's going to be very participatory and DIY. But mostly I'm interested in hanging out and talking with people, because it's going to be small enough that we were going to have enough time that we can, and some people may want to be interested in doing educational kinds of things, but other people may want to do kite building and, tree climbing and just hiking. It's in a beautiful part of Northern California. It's 2 hours. Well, it's 2 hours north by car. It's longer by public transit, but it is accessible by public transit. And then all the food is going to be provided. And there's a number of tiers for camping. There's cabins. It's a really beautiful retreat center called Four Springs Retreat. It's very basic summer camp style cabin bunk arrangements. And it's also a big experiment for us. I mean, talk about a growth and learning. I mean, unpredictability, the unknown. And we're just diving in and we're going for it because it's really, my heart says yes to Mad Camp. So that's why I'm putting my time and energy into this.
It sounds awesome. I'm wondering. I'm just thinking about Crip Camp. Are you gonna? I mean, maybe this is something you can document. And maybe this is something that builds. Mad Camp is 2023. Mad Camp 2024. Maybe this
Sure,
is a thing that builds.
let's do it. I mean, we had some folks who were thinking about doing something in Europe and Canada and East Coast, and like, yes, absolutely. And if anybody is listening to this and they want to do your own Mad Camp, you have our blessing. You want to help organize with us. You have ideas of how we can do things differently or better. Great. We want involvement. We want people to get on board with this idea, but we're going to make it really simple just to start, just to kind of get it going and see how it feels. And sure, I mean, right now I'm pretty stoked about Mad Camp, and I could totally see doing something in the following year. I think a lot of it's going to be about how people feel when we get there.
So, listeners of Oddball Show, this is really a special opportunity to join something that seems to be pretty inclusive and open to everybody. If someone wants to reach out to you, Will, what's the best way to contact you? Are you looking for volunteers? Do they have to be local in California? I mean, can they fly out to be volunteers? Is there any kind of parameters? Not parameters. How can people get involved to become a volunteer, or a scholarship, or just learn more information about this? Where can, because it sounds like such an excellent event, and it sounds like it's really open to like everyone, because everyone is mad in a way.
We're at madcamp.net. So that's the best way to contact us. There's a frequent questions page about Mad Camp there. And yeah, we're absolutely looking for donations for our scholarship fund. So they're tax deductible. So if you want to make a donation to Mad Camp, all the funds that we raise go directly into the costs of Mad Camp. No one's getting paid. It's completely volunteer. Organizers, we have an organizing team that's actually virtual. So it's not just California people. And so if you want to organize with us now, we need the help. The main thing we need now is to share. There's a Mad Camp page on Facebook. And if you go to madcamp.net, it's linked from there, is to share it on social media and get the word out so people know. The ticket application deadline is March 1st. We might extend it, but I'm not supposed to tell that to anybody because we want people we're trying to estimate what our costs are going to be and how many people. And then we're going to need volunteers the days of to do everything from logistical stuff to, helping organize the planning and then the breakdown at the end and the setup and all that. So yeah, madcamp.net. There's also there's a little podcast interview I did about Mad Camp on Madness Radio, which is my podcast. So if you go to madnessradio.net and you scroll around on the homepage, there's a little Mad Camp podcast that we did.
Well, I know that you have a lot going on. I would love to continue this conversation, maybe come back. I mean, there's so much stuff that we could talk about, the most pressing issues right now in mental health care, what's going on. I mean, I feel like your finger's on the pulse of what's going on in this movement that we're all part of. And also, which organizations that, you are supporting right now, and what are you reading? I mean, there's so much stuff we could talk about, Will. I mean, honestly, but I respect your time. I know that, you have a lot planning with this Mad Camp. What are the next steps for you and the organizing of Mad Camp in the next couple weeks or so after ticket sales and stuff? What's next?
Well, the main thing right now is we're doing a big push on the ticket applications. And once the first wave of applications is done by March 1st, then we have to sit down and start doing some math. Because the way that the retreat center is set up, the more people we have, the more we have to pay. Then we have the food. So there's all this stuff that I am not good at. So we have to have a conversation. We're going to try and balance the scholarships. We're going to have to do some lottery, as well as figuring out what we can and can't support people with. So that's the next step. And then once we have that, then we get back in touch with people. We make sure that we have deposits for the tickets once we confirm who's able to come. And then we'll see if we're going to open it up to more people, or what capacity we have. There may be a second wave, like I said, of ticket sales. There may not be. So a lot of it's just like, what do they say? Build the plane as you're flying it. I think that's what
Yeah,
we're doing.
yeah.
We're building the plane as we're learning about how to fly a plane, and or even learning like what a plane looks like. I think we're sort of really so it's a very experimental thing. And I've been thinking a lot about, in terms of like what you asked about mental health and what am I reading. I'm actually reading Rob Wipond's book, Your Consent Not Required, which is a really brilliant, it's a giant groundbreaking expose of forced treatment, because that's really one of the things that we want to create, a sanctuary of Mad Camp, because there's been so much violence and so much harm that's been done. We want to have a place where people can really be among supporters and allies. So I've been reading that book and just thinking about like how a movement sustains itself over the years. And so hopefully Mad Camp will be part of that, in connecting each other. And I mean, if people went to Mad Camp and made new friends, I would be thrilled. That would be my goal. If you can build a friendship, you create a friendship at Mad Camp that you didn't have before, I would feel like our mission is fulfilled.
Wow, that sounds incredible. So I will just also this is crowdfunded. So if you're listening to Oddball Show and you want to support Will Hall's this amazing Mad Camp, look in the links below, if there's a QR code on the screen or whatever, click on it. It goes right to the information of madcamp.net and all these kind of things. This seems like a really fun event, and you get to hang out with Will Hall. So there you go. But
Well, I'm gonna be napping in my tent, actually.
so maybe you won't hang out with Will Hall, but you hang out with a lot of other people
Yeah,
who
yeah.
will be doing I don't know what they'll be doing. You don't.
It's going to be a lot of freedom. It's going to be a lot of some people are going to be really social, but some people are going to show up and they're just going to want to stay in their tent and read a book, or they're going to want to go off alone in the woods. It's like, it's really a space for people to be free and accept each other, and without the judgment that we sometimes have, or the feeling of hiding. There's people who are coming who also identify as neurodivergent, and there's just going to be a lot of acceptance of like, hey, this is who we are. And it's not therapy, it's not like a healing retreat, but it really is a community where people are going to be welcomed to be different, to be who we are.
Well, you said the word neurodivergent, and if my audience is not aware of neurodivergence, can you just say what neurodivergence is in case
Yeah,
people
that's
don't know?
right. Okay, so that is a term that came out of the autism and Asperger's communities. And the idea is that we're not sick, we're not broken, we're not diseased, we're just different. And neurodivergent is often what people who don't like the autism word, or they want to really educate, or they want to bring an umbrella, because a lot of people who've been diagnosed with autism also suffer from the mental health system. They have some of the same issues, and the madness autism thing is very closely related. And so neurodivergence and neurodiversity is a language from that movement. And I just wanted to have a shout out to those folks as well, that a number of people who have that experience or identity are also part of it. There's a discussion about this on the and then also about the language. I mean, some people like, I like the word mad and madness because it sort of creates the literary philosophical context for what gets narrowed down into, oh, your brain is broken, you're bipolar, schizophrenia. It opens up the artistic, the spiritual, the existential, the larger conversation about what it is that we go through, and also the mad as angry part. And that language is something that came out of the movement, that the psychiatric survivor movement going back to the 70s and earlier embraced that language, kind of like the queer movement embraced queer, which was first derogatory. The crip, some people in the disability movement identify and embrace crip. There's all these different sort of use of language, but I don't want people to get really hung up on the language. We just decided to call it mad camp because that was kind of inspiring, and it's just sort of a way of raising a flag and saying, here we are. So if people come and we decide to change the name of it for the following year, that's totally cool with me. It's really about the people and the conversations and the connections more than anything.
Well, that's excellent, Will. If you're listening to this and you seem like, this seems like an interesting thing, and maybe I could be a part of it, maybe I couldn't be a part of it, you can be a part of it. I'm pretty sure Will is saying that this is open to you. So if you're listening and you're like, hey, this sounds kind of like me, like I like to read a lot, and maybe I would like to go to a camp and hang out with a bunch of people, and maybe I do have a diagnosis of whatever, because honestly, mental illness is a total spectrum anyway. So I really feel like, it is what it is at this point. And, and if you experience COVID, you probably walked away with something.
Yeah. But check out we have a frequent questions page, and then people are free to contact us and ask if they're not sure. I mean, there was a guy who contacted us from Argentina. There's someone from, I think, Ireland who's interested. I mean, who knows? I mean, also part of it is just spreading the vision, an exciting vision, and seeing where it goes. I mean, there was someone who's talking about doing something in Belgium. I'm like, great. Okay. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but I like the idea that they're in Belgium talking about, let's do something like Mad Camp here. So that's really what it's all about. We're trying to have fun and get excited and make connections with creative people.
This sounds incredible. And I can see like a t-shirt that says Mad Camp with like a teepee, like back in the, like a kid's like shirt that says Mad Camp, and I can see it, and I don't know, but it sounds awesome, and this sounds like such a cool event.
We have a logo that has like that sort of campfire look.
Yes.
It's like a camper, and it's got a heart.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So,
and okay. So, Will, I appreciate you coming on the Oddball Show and talking to us exclusively about Mad Camp. Any listeners who are want to be a part of Mad Camp, madcamp.net. Connect with Will Hall on all of his social medias. Check out his work on Mad in America. Read his book, Outside Voices. Dig into Will Hall. Will, I don't mean to toot your own horn, but I think you're incredible in the movement. Of course, Harm Reduction Guide is a revelation, really. So, and you can knock on Will's tent and be like, "Hey, Will, tell me all about this all stuff," and they'll be like, I'm reading a book." So,
yeah, leave me alone. I'm at summer camp.
Will, I want to thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Let's connect when this is all over, hopefully at Mad Camp. Maybe you'll see me at Mad Camp, Oddball Show listeners, or whatever. It'd be great. So
would love to have you, Jason. Really would. And I want to then shout out to you and your work and your crew. Congratulations on your daughter, and just keep up the visionary, inspiring, mind expanding work that you're doing with the artistic, creative, poetic side to it. That's what we need.
Oh, thank you, Will. Well, hey, Will, it's been a pleasure to be to interview you and everything, and find out more about Mad Camp, madcamp.net. Check out willhall.com, I believe it is willhall.com. Yep,
that'll get you there. Yeah,
that'll get you.
Madness Radio is my podcast. Madnessradio.net.
Yeah. And let me just real quick. I mean, Madness Radio. Do you have a lot of upcoming stuff happening in 2023? Is it a lot about Mad Camp?
I've been interviewing a lot of people. Actually, we've been doing a lot of conversations about forced treatment and psychiatric violence. I also did a recent interview about spirituality and art. So there's a lot of things going on Madness Radio. So check it out.
Yeah, check out Madness Radio. And Will, thank you for being on the show. And this has been Oddball Show. My name is Jason Wright. I'm president of Oddball Foundation, and I'm here with Will Hall, an amazing human being and an incredible person, and the founder, organizer of many of Mad Camp. So check that out, madcamp.net.
I'm a co-conspirator with Dina Tyler, Monica Cassani, and a whole crew of people who are organizing it. So shout out to them and their work.
Shout out to them and their work, and madcamp.net. And we'll find out more about it. Madcamp.net. You'll find out more about it. And Will, thank you for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Jason. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, Will, and be well. Okay. Happy 2023, and we'll see you real soon.
You too. Thanks.
Okay. You just listened to an interview with Will Hall of Madness Radio and Mad Camp. If you are interested in going to Mad Camp, check out www.madcamp.net. And yeah, just thanks for being part of Oddball Show, and we'll see you real soon. If you are listening and you want to subscribe to Oddball Show, just go to Apple or Spotify and subscribe, leave a review. We'd really appreciate it. And finally, please consider donating to our 501c3 Oddball Foundation for mental health advocacy. My name is Jason Wright, and this has been the Oddball Show. We'll see you real soon.